In the previous lesson, you retrieved a single row of data from a database and stored it in an object. LINQ can also retrieve multiple rows and put them into a collection of objects. To begin this lesson, open the Spark sample file from your Sample Files folder. And open the code behind file of reports.aspx. Now remove the code inside the using statement. You're going to create a new LINQ query, so we need to get rid of the old one. Now we'll use the data class to retrieve multiple rows. In Lesson 10.3, you retrieved a single customer from the customer table of the database. This time, you're going to retrieve several records from the invoice table. Add the following code to the using statement. var invoices equals data.invoices.where invoice lambda invoice.invoice amount is greater than 990. This code retrieves a collection of invoice objects with invoice amount values greater than 990. You'll notice you're using a var variable type in this instance. As you may recall from Lesson 5.13, using the var variable type is usually bad practice. When working with LINQ, however, the var variable type is actually the preferred type, since, in some cases, you will not know in advance the type of object that LINQ will return. It is possible to convert the LINQ output to a list by using the toList method. For example, list invoice invoices equals data.invoices.where invoice.invoice amount is greater than 990 dot toList. Next, we're going to output the list of invoices to the page. Because invoices is a collection, you'll need to use a for each loop to iterate through the collection in order to display its contents. You learned about for each in Lesson 8.3. First, add a string variable to contain the HTML that will be output. String output equals and an empty set of inverted commas. Now we'll add a for each loop to iterate through the invoices collection. For each invoice to output in invoices. And now we'll make the for each loop add the invoice number of each invoice to the output string variable. Output plus equals invoice to output dot invoice number, and output plus equals an HTML break tag. Finally, we'll need to display the contents of the output variable on the page. Add the following code after the for each loop. Label report dot text equals output. Now view the page in your browser. You can now see the invoice numbers of all of the invoices with values above 990. Close your web browser now. In both of the examples you've worked with so far, your LINQ queries have only used a single criteria. In this example, invoice amount is greater than 990. However, you can use any of the logical operators to build your criteria expressions further. You learned about logical operators in Lesson 7.3. For example, to get all invoices that have either an invoice amount greater than 990 or a customer ID of 5, you could change the LINQ code to invoice amount is greater than 990 or invoice.customer_ID == 5. Finally, we're going to use LINQ to drill down through relationships. In Lesson 10.2, you saw that the customer and invoice tables were linked by a line with an arrow, indicating a relationship between the two tables. Because there is a relationship, you can very easily drill down from your invoice objects to the customer objects they belong to. Add the following code at the beginning of your for each statement. Output plus equals invoice to output dot customer name, and then, just for the sake of presentation, output plus equals space hyphen space. As you can see, you can access the properties of the customer associated with the invoice by simply using its customer property. This technique works with any table that has a relationship. A correctly designed database will always have relationships defined. View the page in your browser, and the code you added now displays the customer name next to the invoice number. Close your browser now. You've now completed Lesson 10.4. Retrieve multiple rows of data using LINQ.